Okay, good evening. I'm gonna say that we're running live. Um, it's giving me a error message, but it says that the content is live. So I'm gonna just trust that it's live. I do want to apologize for the issue with not being timely. Technology, you never know what to expect with it. So let's get started. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Um, let's see here. Let me pull up the presentation before I share my screen. Just a couple minutes here. So I'm hopeful that it's gonna work. So let's see here. I want it to show this. Okay. I think it's working. So I'm gonna switch to the full mode here. So I want to again say thank you for attending. I hope that it's insightful. I don't have much time to give you the spiel, so I'll just be real brief. So tonight, which is Monday night, we're talking about spiritual death, and so the implications of that with regards to um, the psychology of our being. So we're going to dive into that. So I'll just advance the slide here. So as you see here, there's a tree here, and so I am really big on graphics, and I picked this tree because this tree explains or will explain what it's like to be um, spiritually dead. And so, as you see up at the top here, it says the subtitle is The Tree People. And so, if you have ever studied anything about trees or anything about vegetation, you'll know that there is a life system within vegetation, meaning that a seed that you plant in the ground is not just something that is inanimate. It once you introduce it to a certain environment, that tree or that seed, excuse me, will spring up, and then all of a sudden you have things moving and you have things shifting. And so the reason why I'm using a tree in this particular session to better explain spiritual death is because trees, they're multifaceted. So when they spring up from the ground, there is um, components to the tree that experience adversity. And so those components of the tree that experience adversity is, the trunk, the branching, the leaves, and what have you. So we're going to talk about the tree in reference to spiritual death because uh, in my opinion, humans are similar to the structure of trees. So we're going to talk about the triad of being. And so what I've learned as I'm studying and researching, one of the dynamics of humans, or our capacity as humans, is the concept of suffering. So suffering is not a dormant term, meaning it's not something that um, um, is independent um, of our experience here on Earth. Meaning, let me just make sure that my screen is showing and that it's doing what it's supposed to do, because I don't think it's doing what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to see my screen. Let's try this again, because I'm checking here on my feed and I can see that it's not working, because it's critical that you can see my screen. I guess it's not working. Oh, wait. Let's see if that'll work. Okay, now that's working. Okay, I was supposed to hit a button and I didn't hit it. So let me go back, because I don't know if you could see the previous slide with regards to the tree. So I know the tree doesn't look good. Um, it's not a tree that I'm guessing someone would run to plant in their yard. Oh, it's still not showing up. Let's see here. Please forgive technology, because let's see, come on. Because it's critical that you see my screen. Let me go back. Let me go back here. Let's see, is it gonna show? Okay, I guess I can just leave it here. So let me just advance from the point it'll let me advance to without there being, let's see if I can move this over, because it's so critical that you see this tree. Okay, so it's showing it's not doing exactly what I wanted to do. Um, okay, so the tree is showing. That's good. At least I got the tree to show, because it's critical that you see this tree, because this tree is in a withered state. And so when you consider the seasons, there is, you know, fall, there's winter, there's spring, there's summer. And so over the course of life, all creation goes through this process, this journey, so to speak, and this journey that humans go through entails suffering. And so some of the patients that I have been able to serve, one of the underlining issues with regards to them is that suffering component is universal. And so when a patient comes and expresses that they feel sad, their mood is irregular, and some people have even expressed that they don't want to live. And so, you know, as healthcare professionals, our goal is to understand what has gotten a person to that place in life where they don't feel that they can respond to their external world, because their internal world has been devastated to some degree. And so, in all of my reading and all of my research with regards to our capacity as humans to suffer, the best illustration that I could give for this particular session is this tree. And so, as I said earlier, that when you have a seed in your hand, that seed seems as though it doesn't have the potential to experience anything with regards to the nuances of life. And so what do I mean by that seed? So that seed in the palm of your hand, it's almost as if that seed, will, could it come alive to experience what it's like to go through a drought, or can it come alive to experience what it's like to receive nutrients and to be surrounded by a lush environment that caters to its growth. So if you take that seed and you throw that seed at the wall, one could say that seed feels nothing, because it's in a shell, and it doesn't have the ability to experience anything, right? And so the dynamic of that seed changes when you put it in a environment that allows it to tear down its defenses. And so what am I saying? So the seed has a outer casing that protects what's on the inside, the capacity on the inside. But then when you put that seed in the ground, or you put that seed in a certain environment, and that seed is exposed to that environment, its defenses are lessened, and the seed now becomes vulnerable, and it exposes what is on the inside to its outside world. And so humans are like that our outer defense protects what's on the inside, the true us, the true you. Who you are on the inside is who you true is, the essence of your being. And so that outer being is that shell that we all have, that defense that we have, that protects who we really are on the inside. And so so when you think about this tree now going into this environment, and it's springing up, and what is its capacity on the inside now has become on the outside, it's visible on the outside, you get to see the vulnerabilities of the tree, to say that if there isn't enough of nutrients exposed to that sprouting seed, that now what was once tucked in now it has come out, and it is now subjected to the nuances of life. And so that's what we go through as human beings, is that when our outer shell now has lessened and we now sprout out, we find that our different elements of our who we are on the inside now become exposed to the outside, and given a certain situation, we can become damaged in certain areas of our life, right? That you have some trees that do not get the proper nutrients, and that as they're growing, because certain nutrients have been withheld, the tree grows wrong, or viruses are exposed to the tree as it's growing, and so you'll have a tree that grows, and then it doesn't have a lot of leaves, because somewhere in the developmental process of that tree coming out of the ground, something happened to it, and as a result of that tree cannot produce on the same level as another tree of its caliber. So that's how you'll see, if you ever walk through a nature preserve or reserve, you will see that some trees, their barks are thinning, that when a strong wind comes, that tree then starts to lean, and then providing that there's additional weather that is not favorable for the tree's development, that tree will just fall over. And so that's how we are as humans, that when we're exposed to certain things in our developmental process, that you will experience situations in life that will cause you to be um, or cause certain aspects of your life to go wrong, thus creating a disconnect between who you are on the inside and what is visible on the outside. Okay, so I'm going to advance the slide here. So, sticking with that thought of the tree, I want to discuss the triad of our being with regards to the tree. So if you take that same seed in the palm of your hand, and within itself, there are elements about it that the outside world cannot see until it's in a certain environment. So let me give you an example with regards to people. So say for instance, a person that was very introverted, that doesn't talk to people, find it very difficult to engage in relationships for whatever reason. And so that person keeps to his or herself. And so, later on in life, they meet someone, and then all of a sudden they sprout in the midst of that person, because that person has interest, is the right environment for that outer shell, that defense, to come down or to be lessened. And so you take that person who was introverted, and now they meet someone, and then that person causes them to, open up, and now you can see the elements of their being, their internal being, and then say that that person, as they open up, sustain a psychological injury in that relationship. So that person who experienced that psychological injury in that relationship, now that portion of herself or himself that came from underneath that defense mechanism now has been exposed to an adverse reaction. So it's natural that that person now would, go to crawl back on the inside like a hermit crab. But the issue becomes, once that outer shell has gotten softened by that relationship or that environment, that seed cannot retract back into itself, because that it has grown past that outer defense. So that portion of that person has nowhere to go. Just like the branch on the tree, it has nowhere to go. It has to continue to hang there and to be exposed to its environment until, one, the environment changes, or two, something so adverse happens that that branch falls off. And so if you think about us as humans, when certain elements of our being that we've exposed to people have been so traumatized that it's difficult to retract that arm back in, that branch back in, to protect it, because it has experienced something adverse. It's extremely difficult to do that. And normally people don't do that. What they do is they continue to hang that branch out there, believing that, not everyone's coming to hurt them that same way. But as we know as human beings, is that the part that sticks out the most, right? It's almost as, you're sitting in a classroom and you have your leg stuck out. If your leg is stuck out and you're sitting by the front door and people are coming through the door, well, your leg is in their way. They have no other choice but to hit it. So if you look at life in that same context, whatever you have sticking out there, right? Remember, because the seed now, it what was internal now has been exposed to the external world, right? And so not every facet of our being is exposed at the same time. There's certain elements of our being that still has not, is still enveloped, has not come out. So not every aspect of that person has come out of that encasement to be exposed to trauma, right? So, but what does happen is when you are exposed to trauma, other parts of you that could have come out will not come out because what did come out has gotten hurt. So, you know, keeping true to the same example of the leg sticking out or the branch sticking out or that part of you that has been hurt is still sticking out because it can't retract. It has nowhere to go. So what happens is when people are coming through the door and your leg is out, what's happening is they have no other choice but to trip over that area. And so if we look at it in the same context as a branch, well, we know if you keep doing the same thing to that branch, it's going to weaken and eventually it's going to break off. And so that's where we see in the healthcare industry where people are, you know, they come and they're damaged not in every aspect of their life, but there's certain places in their life where the damage is so significant that it really does cause a stalemate for that person with regards to other elements of life or other elements of their being. They have a difficult time, you know, saying, okay, well, that happened, that branch broke, but I can grow new branches. I have a bunch of branches left. You know, there's still branching within me that I have not yet exposed. The issue becomes they don't, because that adverse reaction or because that situation is so real and because they're connected, we're connected to all of our branching. We're connected to all of our experiences. And so anytime that we get hurt, we do not want, and because that hurt is so tangible, we do not want to engage in relationships where there is a high chance that we might get hurt. So when you think about the triad of our being, there's three capacities to our humanity that I just want to touch on briefly. I have a couple of minutes left, and so there's the notion of, you know, we're being humans that God created us as. We have a body, which is the outer casing. We have a soul, which is the inner casing, and then we have a spirit, which is the innermost casing. And so when you think about the branching with regards to the tree is the outer casing, right? So the fleshly body, what you can tangibly see, right? And sometimes when people come and they engage with you and have an interaction with you, they have no idea of the impact of the impact of managing your outer casing irresponsibly. To say that when someone does something to you, they're doing something to you in reference to who they are on the inside, right? Because our outside has no intellectual capacity at all. So when you think about our skin has no way to convey a message to our inner being unless someone touches us and does something to us. And when someone does something to us, that reaction is translated to who we are on the inside. And then you have an emotional reaction or some kind of psychological reaction to what was done to you. So then there is a innermost piece or innermost area of us that deals with who we are spiritually. And that's where we have the disconnect. Because if you are, and this is how we have persons, in my opinion, who are antisocial, who are psychopaths, who are sociopaths, because there is a disconnect between the outer person and the innermost person. That who you are on the outside is relayed by two other messengers, and that's who you are on the inner side and the innermost side. And when those areas are disjointed, then you can have a person that have a outer experience that's not reflective of their innermost experience. Meaning, you could be a person who has a humble spirit naturally, right? But your outer person never conveys or relays that, because there's a disconnect between that innermost area and the outermost area because of the blunt force trauma that has happened in the inner area of you, in the soulish realm of you. And so because there is a disconnect there, the inner area will not relay properly information from the innermost area to the outer area. Meaning there is a blown fuse in who you are as a inner being, that the outer being, when it experiences certain elements of life, when it goes to relay that on the inside, it's so disjointed that the soul cannot even perceive accurately what the spiritual perspective of what the outer realm gave you, or the outer experience gave you. Meaning, the person who branch broke off, that the innermost area would say, that's okay, it's okay. There's so many other elements to you that we could pay attention to, and that we should pay attention to, and we should learn from this experience with this branch that broke, right? That don't feel bad. You have hundreds of branches left. And, if we have to lose one branch to value the other 99 we have, then that's what we're going to do. So it's a matter of perception, right? But if the inner area or the inner part of you can't relay or can't receive the information correctly from the innermost area of you, then you're going to see a person that's bitter. You're going to see a person that is resentful and angry and aggressive and combative, because that one branch represents all the branches to them. They can't perceive that just because one bad situation happened, that's okay. You live and you learn, and you're just going to be more protective of your other branches. So because there's such a blunt force trauma on the inner side of you, the spirit part cannot come alive to the outside, because the soul won't cooperate. Okay. So we're talking about next the triangular intersections. And it has a lot to do with who we are as triad beings. So when you think about a triangle, the triangle has no definitive point, meaning the triangle never goes in a circle. Its points are toward infinity, right? And so when you think about the triad of our being with regards to who we are on the outside, the inner side, and the innermost side of us, you can reference the God of man, the spirit of man, and then the soul of man. that there is an element of our being that we can't even explain. There is a capacity that we have as creations to engage in relationships without tutelage, meaning a mother knows how to be a mother, a father knows how to be a father, a leader knows how to be a leader. And what we see in society is that we sit and we wait for these things to manifest. And we'll say, he's a born leader, she's a born mother, she was meant to be a mother, he was meant to be a father. So there's a God factor. And when I say God factor, not saying that humans are God, but saying there is a divine capacity that we have as human species to engage in behavior that is divine, meaning we have no real understanding of how we do it, why we do it. We just know we can do it. So there is a divine nature that's relative to our capacity as humans. And then there is the soul, the spirit of man that, like love, we can engage in love. Love is tangible, yet you can't see it. Fear is tangible, yet you can't see it. Power, to feel powerful, is tangible, but you can't see it. So there is a spirit of man that is so profound that it really references who we are in terms of the duality of us as creatures. And then there's a soul of man that connects us to our external world, that's naturalistic to our planet, naturalistic to the universal laws that we all engage in as people. So, well, my time is up. I really enjoyed the time that we did have together. So I want to encourage you to come back and see us next week, Monday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. We're going to continue on this topic in terms of spiritual death, and we're going to add on to the information that was provided for you tonight. So let me get out of here with showing my screen. And so again, I just want to say it was a pleasure to serve you in this capacity, and we'll see you next week, Monday. I don't know what.